This real-side experience would open up on a recreation of not only my own physical level street where my house resides, but on the surrounding area also, the town in which I live. Real-side symbology and representation can be common to all, but also we can determine certain real-side representation that is unique to us, as certain themes, features appear in particular context and in association with other features that have us recognize what these features are meant to convey. For me, I have come to determine that the closer to home, literally speaking, in the case of the real-side experiences, that events and situations occur, the closer they are to becoming physical level manifest. Everything is instantly what it is in isness reality terms. Agreement is the foundation of creational mechanics. Agreement ideas which set cause to effect into action. The effects and causes are all present in the nowness of the ears, and we can be shown then any agreement in any consciousness that has manifested then its corresponding effects. But the consciousness, human at any rate, processes the idea agreements to effect a culmination, rather like a movie reel runs through the projector, or the disc of the movie plays through on our DVD players. And although the entire movie is present in both the cases, the final act or scenes are present with the opening ideas or agreements which have created them, just as it is in reality. The viewer must sit through the movie, and the consciousness is designed very much this way, that the awareness viewing the simulation, the consciousness construct as decoded by the body vehicles the awareness is viewing through, is resigned to having to sit through the movie of its consciousness, despite it being completed already in actuality, and only on the real side can we skip to the final act, the effect, or turn to the last page of the book. And of course, if agreement changes, the movie reel is changed also, the DVD switched, and with a constant fluctuation of agreement, if this occurs, one may never see the consciousness movie outcome on the physical level, but can see all the potentialities of agreement effect on the real side, and so we may be shown what would be then construed as the future, what are in fact effects already in existence, but that the awareness viewing through the processing of the consciousness via the body vehicles has not reached that particular scene or act, but also we can be shown how close, in physical level manifesting terms, these future so-called views are to becoming so. And in my case, I've come to determine that the closer events occur to my physical level recreated house, the closer the agreement is to the effect outcome as experienced on the physical. It is literally closer to home, so to speak. And so often times, real-side events will be staged in my very street, to impress upon me that indeed the agreement is set to become an impending physical level happening, assuming a last-moment agreement fluctuation doesn't switch the disk or reel. And so there I was with a group of individuals. We were travelling through my town on a small, what seemed to be motorised buggies or carts, though of quite a sophisticated design. Those I was in the company of were those on their own respective processes of awareness, as my real awareness afforded impressions would reveal. We were heading toward my very street, and as we proceeded, we seemed to pass a selection of coins that were laying on the side of the road, and although we didn't stop to retrieve them, or even take a moment to examine them, they appeared very large, and as though of a very ancient design, very solid looking, and made as though of gold. Perhaps they represented the earning of one's way, gold being very much the colour associated with the ears, and although an age can't be applied to the ears, as there is no such thing as a time in actuality, we can say the ears has been present forever. So from a literal perspective, we might use the phrase ancient beyond measure. As I said, the coins were not only gold, but ancient in appearance. Anyway, we reached my street, and present with us also would be the body form of an old school associate called Keith. But as I have shared before, this is a form commonly adopted by the real guides in my experiences, and the impressions from my real awareness would determine that this was so also on this occasion. What happened next was that a helicopter would come into view above our heads, but looked as though it were somewhat in distress, as its movements seemed erratic, and indeed appeared as though it was going to be unable from impacting the ground. And as the group and I would agree that the helicopter was unlikely to remain airborne, it would indeed spiral out of control and hit the street, I would swiftly head to the impact site and determine as to the well-being of the passengers. They numbered 4, and all seemed unharmed. And then the skies suddenly were filled with alien spacecraft. And as I said, as this situation was occurring in my street, it indicated agreement that would facilitate this happening, as everything in a computer game-like simulation is dependent on the agreement file ideas being installed in the consciousness for anything to occur, and agreement that was very close to meeting its effects on the physical. And indeed, I have seen this particular event over and over since childhood, in fact, recurring what I would have once referred to as a dream, of the skies of my street filled with UFOs. Perhaps then an event always teetering on the edge of becoming physical level manifest, but the agreements that allow it to be never maintained quite enough to reach the effect culmination point. Although the design of the UFOs always were rather constant in my real-side experiences since childhood, disc-shaped craft generally, and sometimes night scenes of the same event, and the array of lights on the craft's surface would also be consistent. My impressions, the sense of the disc-shaped craft, always was that of a more benign agenda or intent behind their presence. These craft, however, were completely different. Their design would best resemble insects, a central body section with a number of protrusions that gave the appearance of legs, and my impressions were that these craft were designed purposely, that they did indeed look like flying metallic insects, and as opposed to the constant disc-craft experience, these radiated malevolence and ill intent, and rather suggested that the pilots were expressions of the dark forces, though their identities and body forms were never revealed. But perhaps the craft were an over-exaggeration to give an indication of the nature of the dark force pilots, that being insect-like. For I had a real-side experience a month or so ago. It was brief, but I was observing from my real awareness position, so not participating in the actual creational simulation of what was taking place. I would find myself with the view of space, and it was as though I was picking up signals or transmissions. Their origin would be the planet Earth, and the impressions afforded the personal self revealed that the Earth-based dark force military had reached out and not only made contact with an insectoid-type species of alien, but had rather permitted them to invade the Earth. Evidently, agreement through the human consciousness overall had this agreement installed, the potentiality of alien invasion, and it was as though the dark forces then were really deciding on which alien species could assume the role, and here they had extended the offer to these insectoids. For no species can invade another unless the role, the opportunity, is available, as agreements between all the species involved rather sets up an agreement contract that, once installed in the respective species consciousnesses, effects that very simulation potentiality, and now it just falls on all involved to decide to carry out the potentiality that is now available. Just because a species can now invade as the agreement is there, it doesn't mean they are resigned to doing so. It's always a choice. My view switched to the interior of one of the insectoid craft. A very dark and gloomy craft indeed, and the occupants looked rather like the praying Mantis aliens, as you see them depicted, that contactees and such like have described and witnessed. Within the ship, so would they receive this transmission from the dark forces based on Earth, inviting the Mantises to invade, giving them permission, for it seems the species would not consider such an act unless the dark force reptilians permitted it, and so their space fleet would set course for the Earth. And so that experience would rather tie in with the more recent view I had of the skies filled with these insectoid in design spacecraft, possibly suggesting the imminent arrival of said invading praying mantis aliens, and their intentions were to basically destroy. And as we know, the Dark Force's agenda very much currently is for the purposes of depopulation, and certainly an alien species that is willing to carry out such a depopulation would suit the controllers just fine, as another viable option among all the various means they have of doing so. Again, what they pull off must be within the parameters of the agreements they have managed to have accepted and installed into the human collective consciousness. But again, only if agreement is maintained can such an invasion take place, as every being and species is rather resigned and subject to the mechanics of a cause and effect creation, the rules of the simulation, so to speak. Everything is based on agreement and choice, on an individual by individual, species by species collective basis.
Very good. So, you get the idea of the even the label on the bug, the praying mantis. And there was an old movie about the giant praying mantis, probably in the 60s. I remember when I used to watch science fiction movies when I was young. There's one about that giant praying mantis. And so that gives you the idea right there. And so, from your experience, what you're seeing is they're planning to attack the Earth.
Yep, that would seem to be the situation, and it's almost as though they're sort of opening up the possibility to a variety of different aliens and seeing who will accept the role, as it were.
Yeah, so you're seeing what they're preparing. So again, I see all these things too, and what else we see with the atomic weapons on the Earth and what have you. So it's because we're here very predominant and sharing, people becoming more aware, and these aliens and reptilians, they want control, and they don't want people to become more aware. And some of them are coming over and waking up and seeing, but they will play the role to the last minute, do or die, that others can't have it. So it's very, very interesting what takes place here. So, heads up. So when funny things start happening, years ago, I saw alien invasions myself and people running through the street, whatever. And I was explaining this to others, what's going on. And very real. Get ready to face it, because they can do it at any time. Again, this is prison planet. We're in the prison yard. That's it. And so many people think that because they know what the governments are doing or whatever, that's the wake up. Not even close. They're letting people have that information just so that it bothers them. That's all. And continually spreading that information really does nothing. In the long run, it just circulates like trash on the street, the wind blowing it. And we do that from time to time, but overall it's awareness. So unless people become more aware and agreeable to, becoming more aware, no, they're just caught up in all of it, and no amount of information and result is going to do you any good. So when you're all locked up in a box, big deal that you know what the government's doing, but more so with your real awareness and sharing the new you. So who will do that? Who will get up and do it every day? So yes, thank you, Kevin. And again, another heads up warning. Yes,